Diversity CRE TV, and hi, I'm Niles Reyes, and my guest on this episode is Fred Sullivan. Fred serves as a Senior Transaction Manager in CBRE's Advisory and Transaction Services Group, representing occupiers and investors of office and industrial real estate. His expertise covers northern New Jersey and the lower Hudson Valley of New York. Prior to CBRE, Mr. Sullivan was an account manager at Cushman Wakefield. Fred is a senior pastor at Bethlehem Baptist Church in Newark, New Jersey's North Ward. Broker and pastor Sullivan is a graduate of Morehouse College with a Bachelor of Arts in Business Administration, and he completed graduate coursework at NYU and has a Master of Divinity from Drew University. Fred was recently appointed as an advisor to the Lincoln Park Coast Cultural District, which develops sustainable neighborhoods that emphasizes historic preservation, urban culture, and trains minority real estate developers. I spoke with Fred earlier, and here's what he had to say.
All right, so Fred, thank you so much for joining me here today in Philadelphia, making the trip down, taking time out of your busy schedule, which everybody will hear about soon. But again, thank you so much, and how are you doing today?
I'm well, and I appreciate the invitation. Thank you. How are you?
I'm good, man. How I usually start these interviews is I start with the background of the individual, yourself, and the background I like to call it the roots. Where is that person from? Now, it's up to you. I don't know if you've done a search on Ancestry.com recently. You want to take us all the way back to the motherland,
Right.
Or you just want to start out with New Jersey. So I'll leave it up to you.
Got it. Well, I have not done one of those surveys.
Okay.
I've just been protective of my DNA, but
Right.
enough people have done it in my family to where, I know now don't do anything wrong
Right.
because they will find you
Right.
DNA if they need you. But no, my parents came up at the tail end of the Great Migration from Florida. They met in St. Augustine at
Okay.
Florida Memorial College. It's now Florida Memorial University there in Miami. Relocated because of extreme racial problems in the city of St. Augustine.
Okay.
So very funny, growing up in the Jim Crow South, they figured they'll move north.
Okay.
And they moved to Paterson, New Jersey, where I was born and my younger brother was born,
Okay.
Kenneth, and they were educators. And my mother was told she couldn't have children, so they moved eventually to a town outside of Paterson, which was very, very undiverse. There were no black families around.
Okay.
But they'd seen worse. And lo and behold, here comes the miracle baby. Fred comes along, and they did not realize that they would not have chosen it, from what I'm told, if they had known that they were having a child. So we lived there until I was about 12. And then they wanted to find an area in North Jersey that was more diverse, and they moved us to Teaneck, which was one of the first towns in the country to voluntarily integrated schools.
Wow.
And so they knew about Teaneck, and it was a wonderful place. And I still live there today. I've moved away after college and came back. But my parents, I lived all of my life, if you know North Jersey, along Route 4,
Okay.
except for 4 years at Morehouse College and a couple of years living in the city of Newark when I came out of school.
Oh.
And I think it's just been a great place for me to live. And I'm happy that I had two parents who were educators and disciplinarians, but loving people who knew they were black folks. They knew that they were where they came from. They did not have all of the stories back to the motherland, as you said, but they knew enough of their story here, and they instilled that in us. We didn't go to school on King Day, long before the holiday. We knew stories of our ancestors. I got to meet my great grandmother, who was just one generation removed from enslavement. She was born before enslavement ended, 3 years after enslavement ended. So I knew a lot of stories, and I'm still collecting some now because there's so many different things I'm finding out about my family that maybe stories my parents didn't even know, or there were so many things to teach us about the rich history we have. Baldwin says that to be African American is to be Black African without memory and American without citizenship. I may be butchering that statement, but
Wow.
To be honest with you, I kind of feel that. But to a degree, I'm like, there's such rich history between where I know from myself right now and the Culpeper plantation in Alabama, where I know some of my enslaved African forebears were toiled under oppression. So, and all of the beauty and the love in between. You know, you kind of feel it if you've seen Netflix High on the Hog, to be able
Okay.
to listen to other people's stories and then even continue to think about the different things in our lives, the food, the stories, the culture, the troubles, the travails, the victories, the
Right.
obstacles that have been overcome. So that's where I come from, you know, from folks who attended historically black college and met there and decided that they wanted to live a life together, and they had two boys, and I'm just the oldest of the two.
Okay. Pause. Let's let the interview breathe, because you just dropped another heavy bars on us with all the descriptions of your background as well as your roots. I mean, you really went into slavery and your parents in
I'm
North
sorry.
Jersey. I mean, Teaneck being one of the first schools to integrate. I never knew that, but that's very important information that people need to know. And to your point, you know, we joke about Ancestry.com, but you're right. Looking into your roots and your history and your ancestors is very important, especially as you develop as a man or a woman in obviously the black community, but any community for that matter. So I appreciate you giving me that breakdown of your roots and your origins, family origins of that matter. But okay, so let's go back into family. You say you come, your mother and father, they're both educators. You had a brother named Kenneth.
Yes.
Okay. Do you have any other siblings?
No, it's just me and him.
Okay.
My parents are both deceased.
Oh, sorry to hear that.
My father died when I was 16. My brother was 12.
Okay.
Just shy of my parents, 2 weeks shy of his 50th birthday, and several days shy. No, 2 weeks shy of their 21st wedding anniversary, and a month shy thereabouts of his 50th birthday.
Wow.
I was a junior in high school, getting ready to go to SAT prep, and my mother screamed. So that's enough about that.
Wow.
But
Okay.
my mother died when I was 32, maybe. Um, the math is off, but she died in 2008 in February, and we had just told her that Alonda, my wife, was pregnant, and so it was very, I was happy that she knew before she left here that
Okay.
she was a grandmother,
Wow.
and our daughter was born in November.
Oh, wow. Wow. So then, so you have a family of your own.
Yes,
And how many kids do you have?
just one.
Okay, just your
Just
daughter.
one. Yeah, my parents had two. I had one. I
Okay.
hope that trend doesn't continue for my daughter. My father was a principal
Okay.
until the day before he died.
Hmm.
He was, till the day he died, he was a principal at school number 2 in Patterson. My mother was, she retired as English as a second language teacher.
Okay. So both your parents were educators. They obviously educators. They probably, and correct me if I'm wrong, but they probably instilled in you that education was super important
Indeed,
for your life, your future, even your kids' future, etc.
indeed,
Okay, then. And so
indeed.
going into the education, and you went to Teaneck High School.
Yeah.
So what happened after high school? Did you continue that path of going down the education path, or
Yes, and no. But I decided that I thought I wanted to be in the military when I was young.
okay,
So I basically spent high school trying to get into the Air Force Academy.
really?
Yeah. I was nominated. I was not appointed, but I did get a congressional nomination. And I applied. You apply at least at the time, I don't know what it is today, but at the time you apply in your junior year.
Okay,
Took my physicals, sent the applications in, moved on, and all of that. And I wanted to have calculus my senior year of high school, and I wasn't on the path to do that
okay,
because I knew when I got in, because I was determined to get in, I knew that when I got in my fourth class year, my first year of college, that I would have calculus again. I wanted to be able to perform well. So my guidance counselor, long story short, found a program with not an accelerated, but at least it was not a remedial math program, something that I could use to build on what I had and get me ready for calculus, which I
right.
took my senior year at Morehouse College in Atlanta. Had no intention of going to an HBCU.
Oh, okay,
Was not concerned about Morehouse College at all. Never thought about it.
okay,
It was not something that my parents even ever talked to me about.
right,
My father never wore anything that said, the name of his college, except for when he was painting. So it was something that was important in my upbringing. They said
right.
you can go anywhere you want to
Yeah,
go, and Air Force sounds great. We don't have to pay for it. That's wonderful.
right.
So at any
Question. Why Air Force out of all the other
I wanted
ones?
to be in the military. I wanted to fly. I thought that
Okay,
I perhaps might want to be an astronaut.
cool.
So it makes sense that I'm a real estate broker, pastor, and professor. But what happened was, second grade, I was drawing pictures of airplanes, right? My
Okay.
second grade teacher decided, oh, you like flight, aviation, space technology, all that other stuff. She used to give me the big ebonies. I don't know if you're old enough to remember. Ebony used to be huge,
Okay.
and
Oh, back in the day?
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
back in the day, and Jet magazine articles because her cousin was Ronald McNair, and Ronald McNair was going through
Okay.
astronaut training,
That's from my
and
alma mater, A&T.
A&T,
Yes,
that's
sir.
right, right, Dr. Ronald McNair,
Yes.
and he was. I was like, wow, this is wonderful.
Mm,
So I was one of those kids. I was the space nerd. I knew every. I could tell you all of the numbers. From Mercury to Gemini to
okay.
Apollo to
Okay.
the shuttle missions. I was the one who always watched the shuttle missions before, at night or before school. I
Okay.
remember, waking up early to make sure that I could see them and all that other jazz. So that's what I was trying to do.
Okay. Awesome.
And I went to Morehouse and I said, maybe I'll do ROTC. I don't
Okay.
want to go to the
Okay.
Air Force Academy. I want to come here
Oh, wow.
because here it was an institution where, and the program had high school students. I was a senior, rising senior in high school. There were boys and girls in the program, and I was there all summer. They said you'd get $500. You take some other courses, dissecting cats and
So,
doing all
so what
sorts of
program was
things.
this again? I know
This
you
was
said
a
it.
health careers. It was
Okay.
FEMAP McBay
Okay.
program at Morehouse through their health careers program,
Okay.
or health careers office at Morehouse.
Mm.
And at Morehouse has a history of producing doctors
Doctors,
and
yes.
dentists. I think at one point, there 20%, 20 to 25% of the black doctors and dentists in the country went to Morehouse College.
Right.
And we're at the time we were the biggest we had ever been at 2,500 students.
Wow.
So I mean, there was a heavy tradition of sending black men to medical school, and so I had no interest though. I knew I didn't want to be a doctor,
Okay.
but I wanted that $500. I wanted the to take calculus my senior
Yeah.
year. Who doesn't want to go away for the summer?
Right.
I was in the program for 6 weeks. I got to leave high school early to go.
Wow.
So I was like, this is the thing. And then at the time, A Different World was on television.
Oh,
School Days had
yeah.
just come out.
True.
HBCUs were as cool as they'd ever been.
Yes.
It was cultural, right? So I said, okay, this is it. And I felt like I was the man when I came back with my Morehouse bicycle cap, and all my little paraphernalia with no credit hours. Well, actually, I had 3 credit hours at that point. So, but the program director said, if you've gotten in here, you will be accepted to the college. I applied early decision. And I got in, even though I'd already applied to Air Force. In my mind, I told Air Force it's over.
Okay.
Before
After
I
you,
had my nomination, when I came back from Morehouse, I knew I was
okay.
going to Morehouse College.
Okay. So even though you didn't think about HBCUs or even Morehouse, and then you actually went there based on that program
Right.
that was brought to you through your counselor, right? And then you go to Morehouse for that summer, and you come back and you're like, this is it.
This is it.
This is it.
I was committed.
Okay.
I was
Okay.
committed. And what's funny is my parents, through the church that they attended, or we all attended when I was a kid, Calvary Baptist Church in Patterson. Benjamin Elijah Mays, who was the president of Morehouse College from 1940 to 1967, he was Martin Luther King's president.
Okay.
He came to visit. He wrote a book, his memoir, Born to Rebel. Excellent book if you can find it. A wonderful story.
What's the book called again?
Born to Rebel.
Born to Rebel. Okay.
Mays is a hero of the civil rights movement,
Okay.
but not often talked about. There are so many heroes,
Yeah.
men and women,
Right.
whose names we might really ever know.
True.
But if you do a little digging, you can find out about the men, and you can
Yes.
find out about some of the women without whose creativity and hard work and excellence and determination, we might not be sitting where we are
Right.
today. And Mays is one of those figures.
Okay.
So he wrote the book and he signed it, and my parents had it inscribed to me and my brother. And having never uttered the word Morehouse College in our in our lives to my own remembrance, both of us graduated from Morehouse College.
Wow.
But since I was the first and since I'm the oldest, I got the book.
Hey, that's how it goes,
I've
man.
taken the privilege.
That's how it goes. No, that's awesome, man. And I'm sure a lot of people watching this interview really relate to your story. I'm sure there's a lot of brothers that are at Morehouse that who can relate to your story about, you know, different world and school days, et cetera. And then they went to Morehouse, like this is it. And you know, that's kind of going on right now. Whereas HBCUs are kind of the wave right now. I especially see that in my alma mater, North Carolina A&T. You know, and thankfully, I'm so glad I went there, you know, 12 years ago, because coming from Philadelphia, nobody knew what North Carolina A&T was, let alone the few schools in the area. Probably the most prominent was Dell State, Lincoln, obviously,
Right.
Cheney,
Hmm.
prominent, and then obviously Howard. But going to North Carolina A&T, not many people heard of HBCUs outside of the regional area. But now, to my point, HBCUs are back in the spotlight, as they should be. You know,
Right.
it's well deserved. So I'm sure a lot of people relate to our backgrounds, and especially yours being a Morehouse brother, with your Morehouse storied history. So, okay, so let's fast forward a little bit. Appreciate all that background. So, after Morehouse, what's next?
Um, I fell into real estate.
Okay.
Um,
Hold on. What are you majoring?
I majored in business administration
Okay.
with concentration in um, business banking and finance.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So I wanted to be, what everybody else in the finance,
Hmm.
area wanted to be,
Okay.
which was, an analyst on Wall Street in
Okay.
investment banking or
Okay.
in some sort of trading program. That
Right.
didn't work out for me.
Okay.
I think I wasted a little time at Morehouse. And I was a thank you, Lottie type of graduate.
Oh, okay.
But I made it out and
Right.
made it out in 4 years.
We
So
appreciate your transparency and your honesty,
yes,
man. I love it.
yes,
I love it.
I was not at the front of the line, and I knew that.
Okay.
Although I did well in my major courses once I got my act together and spent
Right.
more time in my concentration.
Mm,
But I knew I had to do other things. So I
mm,
kept a suit in my car. I was living off campus my senior year, and I kept a suit in my car in case I had an interview.
okay.
I was an inroads student,
Okay.
so I was hopeful that Prudential would come through with an offer. That
Mm,
didn't work out.
okay.
For whatever reason, it didn't work out. But I'm glad that it didn't, because I ended up in applying for a position at what was then LaSalle Partners, and so it was a
Okay.
pre JLW,
Mm,
pre that merger and all
uh-huh.
of the growth and that firm has had since those days.
Mm,
And I had a great time as an analyst in their program. Um, I didn't accept the offer when it was offered. After Morehouse, I started at MetLife in a program
okay.
in their development program, one of their management development programs,
Mm,
and they were a huge lender,
yeah. Huge.
huge lender. I thought that I would get real estate experience,
Okay.
and it was made clear to me, 93 when I graduated was not the best year to come out saying you want to
Ah,
work in real estate.
that is.
And
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
so
Timing is important when these,
timing is very
especially in real
important.
estate.
And they at the time when they interviewed, yeah, you could do that. Matter of fact, the two people that they sent down were real estate people.
Okay.
One of the two, I think, is a leader, maybe one or two out in their real estate area right now, real estate
Wow.
investments. And it was great to meet them, and it was wonderful to have this opportunity to walk into MetLife, and I
Hmm.
was the first HBCU graduate that they'd accepted into the program, and they made
Wow.
sure that I knew that, because I was not thinking about being the first.
Right.
And it offered me the opportunity to come back to the New York area.
True.
Um, Although I wanted to stay in Atlanta because my girlfriend was there,
Oh, okay.
and we're
Okay.
married now. But
Oh, awesome.
New York was fine,
Hmm.
and it was a wonderful experience. But then when I started, they told me that they wouldn't. There would be very low likelihood that I would see real estate in any of my rotations, because they were laying people off
Yeah.
left and right.
Yeah.
I left after my first rotation. I said I would do my first rotation. I left after 6 months,
Okay.
and I called LaSalle, and they had offered me a position in valuations in Chicago.
Okay.
I said, well, listen, I'm in New York. Do you have something in the New York area? And they said, yes, we do. Glad you called us. And 2 weeks later, I had a job. And I moved over there, and that was February of 1994. So I
Wow.
was there for almost 3 years.
Okay.
And that was just the beginning of my real estate career. So after Morehouse, I was not thinking about another degree, although I probably should have.
Okay.
I probably should have forced myself to get an MBA at that point,
Okay.
but I did not.
Okay.
And I continued on in working in real estate.
Okay. So then after MetLife, what was the next job?
The next job from MetLife, I was at Prudential for
Okay.
2 years. So I did finally get back into Prudential in an area that I was in equity mutual fund sections as an intern.
Okay.
Now that I'm a real estate professional, very interested in real estate
Mhm.
and staying in the area, I was working for the asset management group. Well, first through the Prudential Realty Group. I think they, rebranded themselves,
Right.
the Prudential Asset Management Group.
Okay.
Having a good time, working for a group appraising general account real estate. They told us on the first day as we're going through training, just so you know, we're selling the general account.
Wow.
What now? And he said, well, we're still figuring it out. We'll make it worth your while if you stay,
Okay.
but we understand if you want to kind of walk away because we know that this is focused on that. So I had 2 6-month periods there within a 1-year tenure or thereabouts with Pru. The first portion of which I was working on the general account real estate as all of that was being sold off. Beautiful assets around the country. Prudential was a huge developer.
Right.
And then the second portion of that, we were working on selling the Times Square assets, the
Okay.
development rights in Times Square,
Okay.
which was extremely interesting.
Mm.
We had a little project office behind what used to be the Nike sign, I think where the Reuters building is now in New York. And, I met a lot of New York personalities, brokers and owners, and had a great opportunity to learn about how development works in New York.
Okay.
And I was there for a little while, and then somebody called me with an opportunity at Sonnenblick Goldman.
Awesome.
So I went to Sonnenblick Goldman, because Prudential's making changes, I could make something else. And now I've gone from analyst, here's an associate spot. And I said, I'm an associate, I don't have an MBA. Look at what has happened. So I'm
Okay.
at this great investment bank. And it was good for a couple of years, worked on some really interesting projects. But I'm going to pause and say, my second and third year at Morehouse Liberal Arts School, so I took philosophy and religion. I'm like, wow, this is really interesting. My intro to philosophy course was like an eye-opener.
Okay.
Religion, the same. I took a couple of extra ethics courses beyond the business ethics course that you have to take to graduate as a business major.
Right.
When I came home at Rutgers, work while interning, I would take courses at Rutgers Newark. I worked in Newark, New Jersey. And I said, I really like this.
Right.
And a part of me said, forget business. You've
Wow.
already left the military. You never in your life wanted to be in business. You always wanted to be in the military. So this was kind of a new thing for me.
Okay.
And then I said, forget this. Change your major to philosophy or something,
Right.
and go that way.
This is at Morehouse.
This is what I'm thinking as a college student before
Right.
I got my degree.
Okay.
And basically, the other part came up. You are getting out of school in 4 years, and if you make the change now, it's only going to change that timeline.
Mhm.
Finish your degree, figure it out later.
Right.
So and you fast forward. From Sonnenblick, I went to Cushman Wakefield.
Okay.
From Cushman, I went to URS.
Okay.
From URS, I came back to Cushman, so I was there for 6 years.
Right.
Altogether. I got the watch and a lunch, and it was great. And then from Cushman
Yeah.
to CBRE, which is a really good story. We can come back to that.
Okay.
I've been at CBRE now for, I think this is my 14th year.
Wow.
So all of that happened, but that philosophy and religion piece never really left me.
It was still that
And
itch.
along the way, probably about 2009, 2008, I started to perceive a call to ministry. And I told my wife, and she said, what do you think that means? And I said, I don't know. She said, I didn't marry a pastor. And I told her, I didn't marry a pastor's wife.
Oh, right.
This is not what I saw for
Yeah.
myself. And my pastor, after I had a conversation with him, said, you got to go to seminary. And I went, and I'm sitting in my first couple of classes, and I'm like, this is it.
Wow.
This is where you should have been. Forget that should have been. This is where you need to be now.
Wow. Okay.
So I did
Preach.
that while working. And, at CB, I've been in real estate transaction management, kind of more of a corporate real estate thing. And I
Yes.
remember that my one of my main clients was acquired around that time.
Okay.
And I started spending time around a pharmaceutical firm that we all know
Hmm.
as an account, as a transaction lead on the account, doing stuff in Latin America, which,
Wow.
I don't speak Spanish, I don't
Right.
speak Portuguese. I didn't travel anywhere, but I was working on transactions.
Right.
And everything changed for me, but the way that things were set up, I could go to seminary at lunch. I'd spend the morning in the office in Saddlebrook, go to seminary at lunch, and have lunch and work on project stuff from 1 o'clock to 6 o'clock, and then go to class at 7.
Man. And how long did you do that for?
An MDiv, Master of Divinity, takes 3 years full time.
Okay.
I went kind of full time, but mostly at night, so it took me 4 years.
Wow. And
4 years of a lot of shucking and jiving, and leaving class to take calls, and sometimes having my computer open with my email up because got to do what I got to do.
right.
But it was an interesting time.
Man. Oh my gosh. I mean, hats off. I gotta shake your hand. That's thank you, brother. I mean, that is some hard work, and it's funny because we all have, things we aspire to be, and sometimes we have an itch or a want or just a calling, and we also have a career. And sometimes it's like, why am I feeling this at my age? I'm 28, I'm 35, I'm 44. But as life progresses, there's a new phase that we enter. And that phase may come to you at 28 and it may come to you at 48. But just know it's the right time that it's coming to you. And it's probably a time where you can, if you put the extra effort in, you know, do both. Like for
Right.
instance, you may not have been able to do that at a younger age, or when you had your family, your family was younger as well. But now that you're more mature, now that you're a little more stable, now that your family is more stabilized as well, and with the experience, hey, it's time to scratch that thing. And you obviously scratched it, and it took you balancing not just your busy commercial real estate brokerage career, but also a Master's in Divinity course load, which I'm sure isn't easy, right? So, congrats to you, and that's why
Well,
I wanted
thank
to
you. I
shake your
appreciate
hands.
it.
So, are you a pastor after? Did you get into the ministry right after graduating with your Master in Divinity?
Well, I've always served.
Okay.
I came up as a church boy. I mean, I was
Oh, okay,
always in
okay,
it. It
okay,
became more serious for me personally, probably in my second year professionally,
okay,
working at LaSalle at the time. But you know, I always did something.
okay.
And
All
then
right.
eventually, because I had a business degree, somebody asked me to be a trustee. All right, so now
Mm.
I'm writing checks
So you
and
were always doing something in the
always serving in
church
some
in the
capacity.
background.
Right.
Okay. It's just that later on in your career, you like made it official. I'm getting this degree, we're getting these credentials, and I'm doing this thing.
Basically, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
All
yeah.
right then.
Basically, yes.
And then so let's talk about that now. So you are a pastor.
I am.
Let's talk about that. Where do you pastor at in New Jersey?
So I pastor in Newark at Bethlehem Baptist Church.
Okay.
My predecessor was a teacher who left teaching and became a pastor.
Okay.
He also went to Morehouse. I met him before he unfortunately passed away while he was still pastor of the church.
Oh wow, sorry to hear that.
And we had developed a relationship. But yes, I now pastor the church. It's a good thing to have known him
All right.
because knowing him helped me to have good relationships with many of the people who
Right.
he pastored, some of whom from their childhood.
So let me ask you a question. Is this like a thing? Brothers from Morehouse going into a career, then becoming pastors, or is this something that happened to your predecessor and
I think it's
yourself?
just something that happened to
Oh,
us. I
okay.
mean,
Let's
to be
say.
honest with you, the Morehouse was founded to teach formerly enslaved African Americans
Right.
the preaching and teaching, I would say, when I used to give tours on campus,
Okay.
education and
Hmm.
religion.
Awesome.
And so there is a very strong tradition of, Morehouse preachers,
Oh, okay.
just pastors, just in general.
Good point. Thanks.
Reverend Dr. Senator Raphael Warnock
Mm-hmm.
was a couple of years ahead of me, but he was a preacher,
Yeah.
and he was very clear about what was happening in his life academically and professionally.
Right.
Mike Walron at First Corinthian was a classmate of mine,
Okay.
as was Jamal Bryant. Otis Moss III was a couple of years ahead of me.
Okay.
So there was a strong tradition of preachers. Of course, Martin Luther King Jr. and Martin Luther King Sr., both of whom were Morehouse men who became pastors. I think I just was not paying attention, and for me, it was later than earlier.
Wow.
But my thing now is, I'm still a real estate professional,
Okay.
and I just live in both of those worlds,
Yeah.
in those domains. At some points in time, especially when I was a student, it was maddening.
I can imagine.
And maybe sometimes I didn't do either one as well as I probably could have if I were focused solely on one or the other. But this is the path that I'm on,
Yes,
and
sir.
God knows who I am, what I am, and which way I'm going. So until God says stop, I'm going to do both of these things. Because this is just who I am. And I'm not the only one. There are plenty of people who do this.
Okay.
I've got friends in New Jersey, in the city of Newark, who are doing, board members, government leaders, teachers, principals, and pastors.
Right. Right.
And I pastor a small local church. We're not huge. We don't aspire to be huge. We just aspire to be obedient. And whatever it is that happens as a function of that is what happens. And as long as I'm able, I can do both. And I find it refreshing sometimes to be able to be in both of those worlds, because a lot of people leave ministry every month. A lot of pastors leave ministry every month, and I've got something else. I've had barbers who said, "Listen, I've traveled and I brought my tools with me, and I could tighten somebody up while I'm away."
Right.
I got a bag of tools that I could take. I could open up my own shop. I could work with other folks. If this thing didn't work out like I wanted to, or maybe that's just the next progression. But for right now, it works for me. It works
Yes.
for them, and I love it to be able to have, all yesterday. I know I got to preach Sunday. I got to prepare a sermon. I've got other things that are going on. Other things that are happening in our church life and our community life as we try to become a better community partner to
Right.
those around us. And I wanted to get on that,
Right.
but I spent the whole morning working on surveys because I'm working on this deal, and I'm excited about those deals.
Yeah.
And I think having something else has made me even more excited about what I'm doing.
That's a good point, man. That's a good
And
point.
I'm looking forward to, just every new day.
All right, let's let this pause. Let the interview breathe a little bit, man. You just dropped a heavy bar. Just the fact that, yeah, you're right. You have something else to look forward to. So you're just pretty much going back and forth, and you're helping people not just in the community but also in your job. So let's touch a little bit more on the real estate.
Okay.
So let's talk about what you're doing now. What's your day-to-day like?
Day to day is really interesting, especially during COVID,
Mm,
because I've been going in the office a lot, um, a few days a week,
okay.
which is different than last summer, clearly, last winter, and last spring.
Right.
But the day begins with the week begins with having planned out what it is we need to achieve. We got projects in different states
Right.
with different areas of status, and
Okay.
what do we need to do? And then there's the ongoing. You can't get bogged down in the transaction work that you're doing, so much so that you can't make the calls for the new stuff that needs to happen.
Keeping that
Because
pipeline.
yeah, exactly. And I've probably been a little guilty over the past couple of months, spending too much time in the transaction work. I've got a couple of agencies, office agencies, and I'm running a few different clients looking for space in various sizes across office and industrial.
Okay.
Because the person that I was teamed with, team, you know, the person I was teamed with when I came into brokerage, right around the time I graduated from seminary, which is an interesting transition to lose your salary at that point and go on a draw that has to be paid back,
Right.
which is something I will never do again. It was, very interesting. But where I am right now, I cover Rockland County and Orange County, as well as northern New Jersey, specifically Bergen County,
Okay.
but some Essex. I got a couple of Essex projects going on right
Cool.
now. And basically, you know, every day is so different because, what hat am I wearing today?
True.
Am I in Orange County showing space? We've got a couple of listings up there. Am I working on land or am I working on buildings? Because industrial, you got to work on both, especially in areas like I work on. Am I now the tenant rep? And I'm looking to beat up as many landlords as I can to get the best deals as possible.
Right.
So every day is a little different based upon what it is I need to do. Some
Mhm.
days I'm so focused on I got a lot of work to do because we need to get these 3 or 4 deals into approval. Am I, making sure something is happening with my colleagues in property management so that I can get a proposal out? Am I working on the financials to put together for the landlord to approve this deal? That sort of thing.
Right.
Versus I need to be on the phone. I need to be prospecting, dealing with research. Show me what I need to know. Catching up on comps.
Mhm.
Every day is different.
Yeah, yeah. No, it sounds dynamic. I mean, both your jobs, they sound really dynamic. But that's one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on this platform. So I really do appreciate, again, you coming down here and sharing your story with the rest of the world. Hey, thank you so much for tuning in. We have a brief announcement giving you, the viewers, an opportunity to support this program. If you've enjoyed this type of content, which highlights the achievements of a diverse set of professionals, you can support by clicking on one of the payment app links in the description below. I'm a black man with a plan who teamed up with another skilled brother and his wife, and we've decided that there's not enough stories being shared of successful and progressive diverse individuals. For instance, if you haven't caught on already, I'm from Philly, and if you're from Philly too, see if you can answer these 3 questions. Who is the most popular black actor from Philly? Okay, who is the most successful and well-known rapper to recently come out of the city of Philadelphia? Last one. Who is the most famous and highest paid comedian to come out of Philly? Now, you didn't even have to be from the city of brotherly love to know the answer to those questions, because anyone that's been paying attention to the American culture for the past decade knows who these fine gentlemen are. And it's a testament to the talent in the city I call home. Now look, I'm not trying to name drop, although I just did, but it helps provide context for the next set of questions. Check this out. Can you name one minority individual from the city of Philadelphia who has served or currently serving as a chairman or CEO of a Fortune 500 company? Who is the most successful minority banker, venture capitalist, and/or entrepreneur to come out of Philly? Currently, who is considered one of the most distinguished minority educators, lawyers, accountants, doctors, or my personal favorite, commercial real estate developer in the city of Philadelphia? Don't know? Well, I don't know either, but I'm on a mission to find these individuals, interview them, and ensure that we all know who's who going forward. Okay, now that you get my drift, here's your opportunity to support the ongoing efforts to highlight a diverse set of professionals and to inspire the next generation. Eventually, we're looking to go across the country to speak with you or someone you know at the top of their game in their respective industry and has significant community involvement. Please contact me on LinkedIn right now. Remember to like, subscribe, and turn on your notifications for the latest videos on this channel. Thank you, and enjoy the rest of the video. So let's talk about community development. I know one thing I want to touch on was the Lincoln Park project. Let's talk about that.
Lincoln Park and my participation in that is really it's something else. It's really interesting to me. And I was telling the executive director that I became aware of Lincoln Park and its story when I was at NYU. I was working on a Master of Science in Real Estate.
Mm-hmm. Which, by the way, pause. That's where I went to school. That was my
That's right. That's right.
That was my graduate degree. So yeah, no, they NYU really catered to the working professional.
Yes.
And that was one of their biggest draws, and they could because they're in New York, right? So I'm happy to see that you actually attended that school for the short period of time that you did. That's awesome. So we have a lot of things in common: the HBCU
Indeed.
background,
Indeed.
the NYU background, the community involvement. So
Exactly.
you could, again, this is why I wanted to have you on. So thanks again. So going back to your Lincoln Park, tell me a little more about that again.
So I took real estate economics. I had Hannigan. I don't know who you had.
Oh yeah. I think I had Hannigan.
She was great.
She was amazing,
She
wasn't
was
she?
great. I really enjoyed that class. And you know what was so interesting for me at the time is
Yeah.
because subprime was exploding as I was just getting started in the program
Okay.
and taking her class.
Right.
So we're talking about subprime and then the whole financial crisis. And we had to write a story about something. So, you know, I've worked in Newark for Prudential 4 summers and 2 winter breaks.
Right.
Why not talk about why Newark is the way it is right now? Talk about Newark real estate. And Lincoln Park came up in my research, and I said, wow, this is really interesting. I'm
Okay.
glad that they're doing their thing, and this is an interesting story to hear what they're doing with respect to the development of affordable housing, the cultural work that they're doing with not just a fundraising opportunity, but the cultural work to have a festival every year, music festival every year. I said, this is really groundbreaking. Then I saw that the director was doing some additional coursework at a program at Harvard as I think it's a Loeb Fellow, and I'm like, wow, this is really interesting to see all these different things.
Yeah.
You know, and development was kind of something I was thinking about
Okay.
at some point in time. So fast forward a few years later, we were talking about the aftermath of the death of George Floyd and Ahmaud Arbery and Breonna Taylor. After that summer that we had last year, you know, CBRE started paying a lot more attention to what was going on. They were always doing something, but started paying a lot more attention. And so basically what happened is I had the opportunity to do more reaching out through community organizations. And I reached out to the Newark College Learning Community. I may be butchering the name, but let's say NCLC.
Okay.
Touch base with a wonderful new executive director who went to Spelman, Robin Ince, and she led me to this person and that person who connected me eventually with Anthony Smith, who is the executive director of Lincoln Park. So I said, oh, this is great. I get to have a conversation with, you know, it's kind of like geeking out a little bit with Lincoln Park LPCCD. So it was, first I started talking about how we might help. And at the time they were working on a great program to create more incremental developers, small developers who might be able to develop small projects in the neighborhood. They had a partner for larger projects, but there were still a number of things that needed to be done. They were too small for the big guys, and still do. And they had an additional cohort which was extremely successful. I kind of sat in on the classes, had some great learning experiences asynchronously and also in Zoom sessions. And I said, this is wonderful. And I'd love to see how many different ways CBRE could be helpful in all of this. And you know, those conversations are still ongoing.
Yeah.
But they asked me to be on the board. And,
Awesome.
And I said yes. So Lincoln Park is, you know, along with a progressive mayor who is so focused on affordable housing and taking Newark forward.
Yes.
And urban renewal without urban removal. Let's not find ways to to price the people out of the homes that they've been living in. Let's find ways to make their lives better.
Hold on, let's pause. I hate to keep on doing this, but let's let that breathe for a little bit. Go ahead and repeat that one more time for me. You just dropped the crazy part. Go ahead.
Urban renewal
Okay.
without urban removal. In so many places, the people get pushed out.
Yeah. The same thing's happening here in Philadelphia, right behind us. I mean, in almost every major city nowadays can attest to this. But continue on. Sorry.
So, you know, Lincoln Park is focused on making the neighborhood better for the people who live there. And if there's an attraction of other people to the area, I mean, I've toyed with the idea of moving back to Newark. I lived in Newark for 2 years when I came out of college and had a great time. 40 minutes door to door to the east side of Manhattan from where I lived, across from Gateway Center. But I wasn't really a part of the community. I was, you know, Newark was where I kept my stuff.
Right.
And, you know, I'd come home, shower, and get back across the river. But there are a lot of people who are like that. And if you look at how neighborhoods and towns have changed from to Morristown, Rahway, to Montclair, Hoboken, Harrison, you know, all of these areas along the path line, along New Jersey Transit, have seen such renewal, but a lot of them have also seen some different things happening for the folks who were living there, and in the more affordable sections. So Newark doesn't want to do that.
Okay.
And they don't want to price their folk out. They don't want
Right.
to lose the base. We just want to make it better.
Right.
And I'm just so excited to be part of a group that is focused on creative placemaking and looking to through the projects that it undertakes to make life better for this neighborhood, and then also to start to create a cadre of developers and professionals who can do this here and hopefully one day outside of Lincoln Park, which is a defined neighborhood within the city, do these things in different places. My
Right.
church is in the North Ward.
Okay.
There's opportunities in the North Ward to make life better for the people who are there. So I looked at Lincoln Park in part selfishly. How can we learn from what you're doing to maybe one day, make the North Ward better for the people that live in the North Ward?
Right.
And everywhere else in all the communities that surround us. As we look at what's happening in East Orange, the renewal that's happening there, Bloomfield is going through something, but the Oranges are experiencing East Orange and Orange are experiencing some interesting projects and,
Okay.
and an interesting environment. So why not make things better for the people who live there?
Awesome.
Where are these folks going to go if
Yeah.
they get priced out?
Right.
Look at what happened to the Bronx.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. And when you get all this information, I want you to share it with me. So I could do the same thing here to Philadelphia, man, because we really have to keep these cities intact. Like I talked in other interviews I've done, a lot of these cities are tailored too. You have your hot neighborhoods, then you have your neighborhoods that are still struggling. So it's important that they're showing you or you're a part of a program like Lincoln Park, and we need to do stuff like that here in Philadelphia. And we may have that already here, but it's good that people like yourself and myself are a part of these, so we can be the ones to go in the community and kind of get things activated.
Right.
And like you said, drop that bar one more time for everybody. Drop that bar one more time, please.
Urban renewal
Uh,
without urban removal,
man,
which is not like
that's
a
powerful.
tagline. It's just something. It's just not even mine. I
Yeah.
heard this someplace, but it's so important for us to think about renewal without having everything change about who lives there.
Right.
We love integration. We love folks coming in and
Mhm.
sharing. That's what makes community. And Howard Thurman has a wonderful quote about community, but I'm not going to butcher it here. But
Okay.
you need new people coming.
Right.
But you also need to make sure that you're not further oppressing the people who were previously oppressed. For us to beautify a neighborhood so other folks can live here is extremely offensive.
Yeah.
Why are we adding more shade? In these hot neighborhoods, urban neighborhoods where black and brown people live are typically hotter than places where black and brown people do not live,
Yeah.
or live in lower concentrations. Why are we beautifying the streets so somebody else can come and live here?
Right.
And what's really interesting, and I just heard this last night as I'm driving in, so
Okay.
thanks for that.
Yeah, no problem.
There was a guy at the eviction lab at Princeton who runs the eviction lab at Princeton. Is it Matthew Desmond or something
Okay.
like that? I got to go back and read his book.
Okay.
Talking about the research that they have undertaken to understand how much people are paying to live in lesser desired neighborhoods or neighborhoods populated by people of low wealth. With higher degrees of poverty.
Wow.
And how that stretches back even to the Great Migration, to where you've got neighborhoods where folks are paying not too different a rental rate, median rental rate,
Okay.
than more suburban neighborhoods with less population of persons of low wealth and less poverty.
Wow.
So, if the delta is within $100,
Right.
but the services are not the same. So now you're
Talk about
charging, it's almost like credit. You're charging the
Uh-oh.
folks at lower income
Okay.
more money
Okay.
for a lesser product.
Preach.
And how do we do that and expect for folks to be able to make it? And, we had talk about the eviction crisis in the country, and of course the lack of housing in general, but certainly affordable housing. And how that impacts future generations of black and brown people. It's a continuate, I was listening to somebody talk about reconciliation. And reconciliation is impossible before repair happens. Truth and reconciliation ought not, there's something in between that. We have to have truth, we have to have repair and reconciliation. And one of the ways that we repair damage done by folks, you know, Du Bois talks about the Philadelphia Negro.
Right.
These people didn't, all of them weren't always here. Some
Right.
of these people came from down south. They
Right.
were oppressed there. They came here. They were oppressed here.
Right.
They've been oppressed all along.
Right.
And now we expect for things to be hunky-dory.
Right. Right.
And then we want to move them out of their neighborhoods.
All right, let it breathe. You keep on putting just so many gems out there. I really do appreciate it. You obviously got your pastor hat on just now, and I do appreciate you sharing all that great information. We can go into a whole nother interview about, you know, gentrification and, like you said, the you know, urban renewal, not being urban removal. So I appreciate all your insight on that. But I definitely wanted to make this all about you, more say. And so thank you again for sharing your wonderful story with me. Traveling from Newark to Philly, I definitely appreciate that. And, you know, we'll definitely have you back another time.
Thank you. I appreciate your invitation.
No problem. Thanks.